The Nuggets face the Boston Celtics on Friday night in a monster game. I'll break down what to expect from this game and if the Nuggets can pull out their best win of the season. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show and join folks like Tommy and Brandon and Alexander and Steve and lots of folks hanging out with us on a Friday as we preview Boston Celtics and your Denver Nuggets. No Adam Mares today. He is elsewhere, so I am with you doing the show and previewing the Celtics game. If you're listening to this after the Celtics game, it's a good chance that everything I say here is wrong. So let's hope that I get some things right. This is a monster game, so I want to go ahead and give my thoughts on this contest. Won't be a long show today, but I want to give some context as to what I'm expecting from this game. A couple things to know up front. The Boston Celtics are known for their defense, right? Like that's the biggest thing is that they're known for their defense. They're this tough, gritty defensive team. Yeah, not this year. Not this season. Their defense has been outright pretty bad. Last two games, they've allowed fewer than 110 points per 100 possessions. So they've ticked up slightly. However, for the season at my favorite website, dunksandthrees.com, which gives you an idea of schedule adjusted numbers, Boston is 22nd in defensive rating. A lot of that gets into the question of like, okay, why? It could be shot variance. It could be a number of things. I will say this, that without Robert Williams, they lack a rim protector. That's difficult for them. That gives them a real challenge. I think they are going to be a good team defensively by the end of the season, not only when they get Robert Williams back, but the Celtics over the course of the season will tighten up some things. Boston runs a more complicated and not more complicated. They run a different scheme than a lot of folks. So I talk a lot about the drop coverage and the at the level. The Celtics just switch everything. That's their entire MO is we're just going to switch everything and make it. We're going to take away everything you want to do. You don't have to help in pick and roll coverage if you switch. That's one of the ideas is like you don't have to bring help to guard at the rim, which leaves open the threes. And so they're able to guard both on the drive and at the rim. Where I think this is really fascinating with the Nuggets is how Joker in particular likes to attack this, which is you force the switch and you get a smaller player. Let's say the Marcus Smart's guarding Jamal Murray tonight. So you run that pick and roll and Smart switches on to Joker. And then Al Horford switches on to Murray. Joker's favorite mechanism is then to run that back into a pick and roll versus the guard. You make this smaller guard that is unused to having to play in the pick and roll, and you make him defend in that coverage. So you attack him once again. The Celtics are very good at just switching it back, right? And if you attack him on that level, what you're going to wind up with is you're just going to wind up with Marcus Smart then switching on to Jamal Murray on a drive, and that's tough to beat. Like this is one of the problems. And so the alternative is to post, right? So you post up, you have Joker, they run pick and roll, Jamal backs it out. Joker goes to the post and post up Marcus Smart, who's obviously much smaller. This one's a fascinating matchup because Smart is one of the strongest players in the league, not guards, players. He is exceptional in the post. He is a brick freaking wall. But what's interesting is that Joker doesn't try and back him down because he knows that Joker will turn and shoot over him. So now after you've done that, Boston has to bring help, but they're very good at bringing help. They won't bring it strong side. They're not going to help from the short corner the way some of these, I'll just say some of these idiot teams have done. Like there's just been some dumb doubles. If you double Nikola Jokic one pass away, you're going to get fried. Like there's no question about this. This is not debatable. The Celtics will not do that. If they do, it's going to be very rare. What they will do is they'll bring him from the weak side baseline to try and disrupt his dribble. They will throw different coverages at him. You don't want him expecting what's coming. Now, Joker will read it because he's seen all this stuff a million times. And that's the danger here. And they know that, right? And in the past, that's been effective because the Nuggets didn't have shooters. The key is going to be Joker being patient, attacking that matchup, and then punishing the help that has to come with getting it to the shooters. You could say that that's the challenge every game. It's more important in this game. If you force the Celtics into a situation where they feel like they have to live with Nikola scoring in order to stay home, you have an advantage. Now, Grant Williams, who somebody brought up in the chat, likes to call himself Batman after last year, after he shut down Joker. And he did. Like, he had a really successful stint versus him. Joker tends to figure guys out the second time that they play. I don't know if that happens this game. Like, I thought that was kind of an outlier performance from Grant Williams. I don't necessarily think that Grant Williams has an advantage on him. Horford's a good defender. No, Horford's a great defender. But there's a size mismatch here that has to be accounted for. I have this season kind of advocated very strongly against the idea that Nikola Jokic needs to shoot a lot. I don't find that to be indicative of how Joker's playing. I think Joker's had games where he was kind of half interested and didn't shoot a lot. I think I've seen Joker have games where he shot 25 times and wasn't interested. That's not a measure of how engaged Joker is in the game. I will say this, though. If Joker applies pressure offensively on the Celtics and is cooking them, it fundamentally breaks all of their defensive principles. It breaks down everything that they're good at. Their entire team is built to challenge that specific element. Can you beat us one-on-one? And specifically, can you beat us one-on-one with a big? Because guess what? There's only like 4 great big men in the league right now. So it's very difficult for teams to be able to counter that. But he's really good at it, obviously, being Nikola Jokic. So that, to me, is like an important thing. I'll tell you this. If Joker has a quiet night, if Joker has fewer than 20 points, I expect Boston to win. I think Boston wins, and Boston probably wins not handily, but they probably cover the 4.5 spread. That's what I think. A couple of players I think they're going to need to have big nights. Aaron Gordon, I think, needs to be very active in terms of on the glass and offensive rebounds. They're again going to challenge him. You're not going to get any of the easy stuff that the Nuggets get, I don't think. If the Celtics screw up, then the Nuggets are going to roll here. Like, if the Celtics do not communicate well on their switches, this will absolutely be a laugher for Denver. The switch does a couple of things. One of the best mechanisms to counter it is the slip, right? So let's say the Joker's got the ball and you run it with Aaron Gordon in that center ball handling pick and roll. When they try and switch, there's a moment where Gordon can then flip and roll to the rim, and Joker's really good at that overhead pass, and that's a bucket. Again, we get into the problem. Boston's exceptional at this. They keep their hands high when they're trailing the slip. So they make that pass extremely difficult. Joker can make it, but it is inherently a low percentage pass because of how Boston defends it. So when you're watching tonight and you're watching Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, the guys that they run that action with, both on ball and off ball, because they'll switch both, pay attention to how Boston guards with their hands. If they're getting caught underneath, it means that Boston's fundamental principles in terms of how they guard those slips is failing, and that gives the Nuggets a pretty big edge here. We'll talk about the defense in the second segment. Nino Slav says MPJ's shooting will be huge tonight. Should have a great game. I agree to this extent. Last game, MPJ didn't hit his contested jump shots. So the question is, do you think that he'll hit his contested jump shots in this game? Because I'll tell you, more than likely, if they're going to help, they're not going to help off of MPJ. They will challenge MPJ to hit contested shots. Boston believes in those principles, right? And MPJ is willing to shoot them. If MPJ hits those shots, it breaks their offense or their defense. There's all these ways that Boston basically says, we're going to take away space and pick and roll, and we're going to make sure that every shot is challenged on the perimeter. But if you convert those at a high level, it breaks it down. It's similar to how Golden State defends, honestly, in a lot of ways. I've long said that if you're able to beat Golden State in terms of Draymond Green, if you make Draymond Green a liability in the post, you have a chance of beating the Warriors. The Nuggets had those chances in that first round series last year in games 3 and 5, and they couldn't capitalize because they didn't have the offense. But they have the offense now. They have the shooting in order to make sure that they can't send that kind of help. Walter says, if Bones is bad, then I think it's a loss. If he can run the bench to where they lose by less than 10 points, we should win. I don't know that the Nuggets are going to win the starting unit. I think the starting, look, I'll tell you this. If I had to script this out, I would put the starters for Boston and Denver. Denver +2 is what I would say over the course of the game. Over the 4 stints, beginning of first, end of second, beginning of third, end of fourth, I would put Nuggets +2 on the starters. That's a very narrow margin, right? Like your margin, like your standard deviation is going to get that well within range of it being -2. But the Celtics, you're right that the bench is a big issue here, in that they have guys, in particular Sam Hauser, who, by the way, is shooting 95% effective field goal percentage on spot ups this season. They have him coming off the bench. The bench is going to have to score because their bench is going to score a lot. So you need Bones. You're right that you need Bones to have a good game. Bones needs to hit shots, but I'll say this: you need Bruce Brown to hit shots. You need Jeff Green to hit threes. This is gonna have to be everybody chips in tonight. It cannot be the standard model for the Nuggets is the starters kill the opponent, the bench does okay, and their win is comfortable to fairly decent, right? That's not going to be the case here. You're not going to run away from the Boston starters. And if you do, they will come right back at you eventually. Like if the Nuggets go up here by 15 in the first quarter, I will guarantee you this is close by a half. And if not, it will be close sometime in the third. You're not going to get away from Boston. Not at home. Will not happen. So as we talk about this offensively, you mentioned the MPJ stuff. If he's hitting those contested threes, that puts a lot of pressure on him. Jamal's an interesting one in this one. This is going to be the toughest game that he's had since he came back because they're going to switch everything and challenge him in one-on-one coverage with athletic long defenders. Whether it's, and I'll say this, they won't give up the switch every single time. This is important to note too, because there's the other way that you can kind of counter the switch is if you reject the screen. Smart is so good at navigating these kind of things. He will not let you, like he will close on you if you try and reject the screen and go the other way. And if their coverage calls for him not to allow the screen, he will just fight through and contain. And I don't know if Jamal's explosiveness is at a point where he can exploit that. This is going to be a real challenge for him. They'll put Jaylen Brown, probably on KCP, and he'll help off. You're going to have to. Marcus Smart is really the biggest key in this. If you're able to have a good game versus Marcus Smart or get him in foul trouble, that's going to tilt a lot of things toward Denver's way offensively. Again, Boston's defense has been weak. They will have an advantage on tip-ins. They will have an advantage on the glass. If MPJ, Gordon, DeAndre Jordan, Jeff Green, and Joker, if those guys are attacking at the rim on offensive rebounds, that is an area where they can get a huge advantage. The counter to this is turnovers. Okay, Boston, they're able to play the switch style, which also means that they're also so good at deflections. If the ball's going the other way, that's taking points out of Denver's hands and it gets them in the transition. That's how they lose. If Denver has more turnovers than Boston by a margin of 3 or more, Boston wins. That's the reality. You can't turn the ball over versus Boston. They're too good. They will convert. We'll come back. We'll talk about the defensive stuff when we come back because the Nuggets defense actually has been a lot better. We'll talk about why, how it plays into this game, and what the keys are for Denver. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about BetOnline as I pull up this graphic. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. I was on the Falcons last night. That hurt. The worst, though, I was on Heat under 114.5 team total, and they were at 109, and it went to overtime. Overtime just kills you. You can get on tonight's action. If you think the Nuggets pulled off, you can get them on the money line tonight, BetOnline. If you love podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They've got all your coverage from football to basketball to soccer and esports, all the trends for every professional and amateur sport out there. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Glad to have you guys with us. I've talked a little bit about the spread in this game. Somebody asked for a plug. If you do want to hear more about NBA betting, you check out my podcast, Buckets, available from the Action Network. It's available wherever you get podcasts. Just search for Buckets and you'll find it. It's a really fun show. I do futures on Mondays and Fridays, and we do best bets Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Check that out from the Action Network. My graphic is still up. Okay. All right, so let's talk about defense, because the Nuggets defense has been surprisingly pretty decent as of late. If we look at the last 2 weeks, they are actually 10th in defensive rating, and in adjusted defensive rating, the Nuggets are up this season to 24th. That's not great. It was higher before the Pacers game. They have worked themselves out of being the worst in the league, though, and that's impressive. I will say that a lot of this is based off of the opponent. So this is going to be a challenge because Boston's offense is absolutely thermonuclear. This is the number one offense in the NBA schedule adjusted. They average 119.5 points per 100 possessions. So how are they getting that done? Well, Jason Tatum's awesome. That's a big part of it. I'm going to be very curious tonight to see how they approach this game. So Michael Malone has mentioned Bruce Brown's defense on Tatum approximately 700 times and has been very mad that we have not done the homework on it. I looked up this morning. Last season in the regular season and playoffs, Brown held Tatum to a 44% effective field goal percentage. If you hold anybody under a 50%, you're doing awesome. So he did great. The numbers absolutely back up that he did great. Tatum's better this season is kind of the problem. He's stronger, he's faster, he's more explosive, he's more confident, he's getting to his spots, he's more patient. So this is going to be a real challenge. I'm expecting Aaron Gordon to get the primary assignment. I don't know that you can put KCP on him because Tatum's so big, it can cause some issues. They'll throw different looks at him. This is what they always say. It's like, well, we're not going to do it one way. It's going to take a team, blah, blah, blah. They'll start, I think, with with Aaron Gordon. I think that's the best way to kind of approach attacking what Boston brings to the table. One of the things that'll be interesting is Jaylen Brown. I actually would challenge it's okay if Tatum has a big night. If you contain Jaylen Brown, you are in a very good spot to beat the Celtics. He is very it is that if you can live with the number one guy, but the number two guy is what kills you. So I think KCP staying home and locking down Brown is actually more important. And I would put Aaron Gordon on Tatum. And the reason that I would do that, and not a coach, obviously, but the reason I would do that is he's got the strength to really bother him. He can get low. Tatum wants to post up. That's not going to be workable versus Gordon. If Gordon gets in foul trouble, you have more options. So you can throw different guys in the second unit. You can go to Green if you need to. You can go to Bruce Brown. You have multiple guys that can guard Tatum. Jaylen, honestly, it gets a little bit tougher. If KCP gets in foul trouble versus Brown, then you can put Bruce Brown on him, and that's okay. But then you lose the ability to match up Brown with Tatum in those minutes if they stagger, or if you're having to play Brown in those minutes, and you have to choose between. You can play Christian Brown. This is a lot of Brown. We got Jaylen Brown and Christian Brown and Bruce Brown all in the same game. And only two of them are spelled the same way. So I think would Christian Brown be good in this game? I think so. I think it's worth deploying him. I'd actually specifically put him in versus Hauser in certain rotations and just be like, don't let him shoot threes. That's your job. Don't let him shoot threes. Because Hauser, that's really all he's going to be able to do. Alexander asked, do you think Moach starts Brown instead of KCP? No, he will not. He will absolutely not change the starters. Period and dot. I've talked about this a lot. We'll always talk about this a lot. There are certain things in the regular season that you do not do, and mess with the rotations is one of them. You're not going to tell Michael Malone, who is 8-3, that he should change his starting unit in the regular season game. That's not what they do. And that's not even well, let me take that back. That makes it sound like it's only Malone that thinks that. The players don't either. Teams as a collective are like, well, we're winning. Why would we change it? We're winning. So MPJ will absolutely be there. At the same token, I don't expect the Celtics to attack MPJ that much in coverage. So depending on what they decide to go with, the Celtics are a little bit more fluid in their starting unit. Depending on who MPJ guards, they may attack him and pick and roll. And what they'll do is they'll just get him out earlier. Like, you're going to be able to get half of the first quarter and half of the third quarter without MPJ on the floor anyway. The question in those minutes is if you can score enough versus this defense. And you should, because their defense has been bad. But again, I think Boston's trending up a little bit defensively, and I think they'll be up for this game. Potsy says, I got a bad feeling about this game. We're going to talk about expectations in the last segment. What I will tell you is I'm always begging you not to overreact. I think in this one, you absolutely cannot overreact. This team is too good. This is one of the best 5 teams in the league right now, and they're not 5th. So I don't know that I don't know that you should feel bad about this game, even if you think that they're going to lose. The key is going to be how they match up and seeing where they're at versus a really good opponent, because so far they've only kind of beaten bad teams. So you want to see Denver beat a really good team that's playing well. They beat a good team in Golden State that's not playing well. So Daniel says, I see the final lineup having Bruce instead of MPJ because we'll need the defense at the end of the Celtics game. I would bet that. If it's close, I think that happens. If it's less than 10, I can see Bruce Brown closing the game. I don't know how much Boston will attack MPJ. They're not a particularly advantageous offense. And what I mean by that is they don't seek out certain weaknesses. They just kind of do their thing. It's very rare that Tatum's like, I'm going to go target this guy on switches. He can't guard me. That's just not what they do. They just get away from it. They just kind of run their thing. So I'm not sure how much of that's going to happen. It also depends on what the course of the game is. If this is a 125-120 game in the fourth quarter, which I think is possible, given where those two teams have been at defensively and offensively combined, then don't you want the shooting? Like, you kind of want MPJ. That's just reality. Again, MPJ is going to have advantages here if he attacks on the offensive glass. That's an area where he can do damage. He should help on defense as well. That's really important. Okay. So Trevor says, honestly, with how crazy and awkward the Pacers game was, I wouldn't be surprised if the Nuggets have an amazing blowout win. Look, it's possible. It's on the table. I think it's tough with how good this team is. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about what you should expect from this game when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. This podcast only has like a day of shelf life, but I want to go ahead and get it up because I'm just that excited about the Celtics game. And I told you that we would. Eric Weedham says, what up, Matt? What up, Eric? How's it going? Appreciate you guys in the chat there being positive. David asked anything to look into with Joker's rebounding numbers down. MPJ's back. Period and dot. That's the secret here, is that they have better rebounding around him. And he doesn't have to do as much. This is the same reason why his scoring is down. It's the same reason why his overall usage is down. And usage doesn't have anything to do with rebounds, but that's why, is the Nuggets have way, way, way better rebounding options around him, and everybody's not as tired. So for a good example on this, the Nuggets are 4th in rebound percentage this season. That's actually the biggest thing. When you look at rebounding, this is just a general tip. Don't look at individual rebounds. This is one of the things that I try and hammer folks about. If a player doesn't have a lot of rebounds, that's not a problem. Is the team rebounding well? If the team has a low rebounding percentage, if they're not getting enough of the available boards and they're giving up too many offensive rebounds, then the individual players need to get more rebounds. But as long as your overall team rebound rate is good and the Nuggets is 4th, then you're in a good spot. It doesn't really matter who gets the numbers. It helps with the MVP case. The Nuggets have bigger fish to fry. So, Joe Alexander says Joe has absolutely rebounds like a madman when he has to. That's true. I mean, that's kind of been the story of the season so far, is really honestly the Joker has done whatever the team needs him to do. If he needs to dime, if he needs to pass, if he needs to score, that's what he's done. I don't think his enthusiasm doesn't seem. I've kind of gotten away from the idea that his enthusiasm is affecting his play. I think that they're two separate concepts. I think he has low enthusiasm for this point in the season. I think he also is still playing at an incredibly high level and doing what he needs to do. Oh, Daniel says, and we make so many shots that there's no rebounds to get. Yeah, that's part of it. The shooting is definitely part of it. People bringing it up. Yeah, if you want to tonight, if you want different, well, I will always tell you to listen to Altitude if you can. I will always tell you to listen to Altitude if you can. If you have the opportunity, definitely check out on the rewatch. If you're going to rewatch this game, check out the Celtics feed. They love Joker. They really do. When they compared Joker to Bird, and we're like, look, we're going to get hate calls, but I'm telling you, this is like what I've seen. It's pretty telling. Like it's pretty telling that broadcast crew that saw Bird knows what it looks like. Let's talk about expectations for this game. All right. So the Nuggets are 4.5-point underdogs. That's what the market is telling you. And that's pretty indicative, right? It's not a coin flip game. It's a little bit more than that. Boston's got a good home court, so that should be an issue. If the Nuggets get blown out, it says that they're not where they need to be. Right? That's okay because it's November. You cannot be where you need to be. If you win this game, it doesn't mean that you'll be where you need to be in April. I'm not saying a loss is better. It's not. The best outcome is the Nuggets blow out this. No, I'll actually take that back. If they blow out the Celtics, it means the Celtics are not where they need to be. The optimum outcome for this game is that the Nuggets win a close game. That proves if both teams play well and Denver wins, that's your optimum outcome, is the Denver Nuggets win close. A blowout really does honestly mean that Boston's just not where they need to be defensively, and they have a down night. They're too good. The Celtics are too good for the Nuggets to blow them out, no matter how well the Nuggets play, if the Celtics play well. So what you want is the Celtics to play well, the Nuggets to play great, and the Nuggets to win somewhere between the margin of 4 and 10. If they lose by less than 10, I think it means that the Nuggets can hang, but they're in that top tier, but they're not definitively above it, and that's okay. If they get blown out, it means that they're not where they need to be. It can also mean that their focus isn't there and that they're not locked in on these type of games, and that's annoying, but very possible. And sometimes you have every intention of winning a game, and you come out and you just don't hit shots, and everybody's like, and you're on the road, and it's too tough. I really want the fan base, which you all are representative of, are members of that community, to like take a notice of the fact they're 8-3. The numbers are really good. This team is going to be fine. So every time they lose, we don't have to do should Malone be fired or should they trade Jeff Green into the sun. Look, we just don't have to do that, right? And this game in particular is one that you need to be okay with a wide range of outcomes. This is a measuring stick game, and you want them to do well. But the fact that it's early is a good thing in that it means that there's time to fix whatever is wrong. I'm not saying they're going to get blown out. I think it's entirely possible they win this game, right? The Nuggets, I think, are a really great team. I think they'll get up for this. I think they're going to be mad about last year when the Celtics clowned them a little bit with Grant Williams when they were missing 2 guys. This team's a lot better. Like, this is just a lot better. Big Honey says, to be fair, Murray before the injury has had great games versus Boston. Curious to see how he looks tonight. Yep, that's true. If it wasn't for the injury, I would be like, this is a big edge towards the Nuggets. I honestly would say the spread was too high. If you think Murray's 100%, then this number is too high. The Nuggets should be a coin flip. This should be a pick 'em. Even it should be a pick 'em on the road. It should be a pick 'em at home, which negates the home court. But that's how I feel. They're really good. They're both these teams are really good. These are absolute classes of the league, and I think that they're on pace for a really good situation. Zamora says if it's close, we can always count on the 2-man game. Yeah, to a degree. It depends on how Joker does and how Joker's shots falling. Like, that's a lot of it. Is like, Joker's missed some bunnies this year. Adams talked about it. Is he going to make all the floaters? If he does, if he makes those big shots, they're going to be in a really good spot. Expecting logical reactions from the fan base. Well, that ain't happening from this dude. Fair. That's fair. David says Murray looked around 75% of himself, which is good at this point already. He's way above where I thought he would be. I said this on 104.3 The Fan this week on various shows that I think Jamal is decisively ahead of where I thought he would be. He's been really great the last couple of games, but he's also just in general looks better. And he hasn't struggled the game after. It hasn't been like one good game and then he looks awful. That's a really good thing. Big Honey says overreactions are expected after a loss. Yeah, but I'm the one that has to answer for him. So I'm asking you to do me a favor and not overreact on this one. Get the Memo says 104.3 The Fan covers the Nuggets. Yeah, actually, I'll just go ahead and tell you, like, yeah, they do. We had a roundtable that took up the entire afternoon previewing the Nuggets season at the start. I make an appearance on multiple shows per week. Darren McKee, DMAC, is at every single Nuggets home game. He asks questions in every presser. He videotapes those questions, or videotapes. God, I'm old. He takes videos on his phone of all of those questions, so you should follow him. They've really committed to covering the Nuggets and Avalanche way, way more. So the answer is yeah, 104.3 The Fan does cover the Nuggets. Do they cover the Nuggets the way that the show does? No. Do they cover this way the way DNVR does? No. Good Lord, no. But they do cover the Nuggets. That's actually true. If you get past this is no longer the never an off season 104.3 The Fan. David says Jamal used to struggle so much against pressure when he became the starter in 17-18, improved so much. I had to learn this. So this is a long time ago. I made fun of the Mike Conley extension when he first got his rookie extension from the Grizzlies. I was like, this is the worst decision ever. He has no dribble penetration. Like Conley couldn't manage pick and roll. It was awful. And then Conley turned into one of the best players in the Western Conference and led that Grizzlies team to a whole bunch of playoff success. And I talked to Mike about it years later, and he talked about how it takes 5 to 6 years for guys to learn how to play point guard in the NBA. You have to learn reads. You have to learn patience. You have to get used to. You have to work on your handles so much, not just in the complicated, fancy ways that kids practice. You have to learn how to avoid player swipes and where that pressure is coming from, and how to avoid it while still managing whatever it is that you're trying to do. And Jamal learned that. He's been ahead of the curve on that, so he's been really great. Big Honey says, can't wait for the first 30-point game of the season from Murray, then 40, then a 50 piece. Hey, can happen. Zach Lowe and Doris Burke just did a podcast on the Nuggets. That's exciting. That's a really great combo. Okay, so my final prediction for this game, I'm going to say I'm going to go Boston 117, Nuggets 112. Boston covers by a half point. Nuggets are in it, can't get it done. Free throws clinch the deal. So that'll be that'll be my official prediction for this game. I'm not hot or cold with predictions. I will definitely jinx them in game, as I always do. You guys will enjoy this game. Knock on wood, no one gets hurt for either team. Should be a fantastic matchup. Let's hope it's a great game. We'll have post-game coverage tomorrow. I just find that I do a better job when I have the night to think about things from the game. So I'll do a post-game show for you guys tomorrow. You can check that out over the weekend before we get Adam's thoughts on Monday. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being in the chat. And we'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.